So it's been an interesting week. And it is not the culmination, but we've come to a particular point in Barbara's and my story that it's probably time to kind of reshare it. But I have to create a context for doing this. And I begin with all of us and how, as human beings, I mean, we're spiritual beings, but we come to this planet and we learn the ways of these humans. And we tend to follow that. And yet, even before that, it's true that we have this desire to have. Breezy, hand me my phone sitting there. And I'm going to confess to you, I'm not turning my phone off today. I'm using it as a prop, and I want to be available to Barbara if she needs me. So, there's this thing that happens with little kids, that they see something in the department store, in the toy section, and they want it. And they really want it. And they want whoever's there with them to give it to them. No exceptions. That's why there is always such wailing and gnashing of teeth in the toy section. Because kids do not understand the idea of delayed gratification. They have no patience. They know what they want. They want it now. That's an idea that all of us have gone through. And even though they say in developmental psychology that we outgrow that, we don't. We may suppress it a bit, but for the most part, we know what we want, and we want it now. Like I said, I'm going to use this as a prop and just get this over and see if this works. I don't think I've ever used my phone. No, I didn't. God called me one time. I used my phone as a prop. This is a song by Queen. I'm just going to play part of it. If they'll let me. Here we go. Now let's see if I can get it to stop. Not the most mature way to be in the world, but it's natural for us. It's our natural inclination to want what we want and want it now. And so patience does not come easy for many of us. I'm sure there are patient people. I'm not one of them. I don't like sitting waiting for anything. If I'm going to do this, let's do it now. But that's not how life works. And it's not how principle works. So we go from the place where we think all is lost and life is filled with travails and conditions that we don't want and all of this, and we are burdened by life. And then we come to a place like this, like Center for Spiritual Living Asheville, and we learn that we really can control our conditions. Yay. I go back to, I want it all, and I want it now, right? I remember in class there have been times when I've said, now I want you to pick something, and we're going to work on spiritual mind treatment, and you're going to work on this one thing in your life. And I would go through each person, and we would see what the thing that they wanted to work on. And I'd have a few that would go, I want this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Because they do. Not that it's like wrong, but it's not really how it works. And this idea, and we get this idea from teachers like me, that you can close your eyes and speak the truth and have it manifest instantly in your life. I love it when people go to lectures or other centers or see something online, they come to me and go, oh, they're teaching the science of mind. And I have to correct them. What they're doing is they're sharing truth. Science of mind is one of the ways we share truth. And it all sounds the same because truth is truth is truth, no matter what you call it. But once you understand that you have the ability, as the divine presence that you are, to change conditions in your life, you want to be able to get them like that. You want them right away. You don't want to wait. You don't want to have to deal with this thing of like coming incrementally into your life. You want it now. Okay. And we all go through that. But what I find more and more as I study this teaching and as I live my life is that that's not how it works. There are occasions when it does. You hear a story of someone who had some instantaneous healing, or they treated for something, went to the mailbox, and there it was, or a thousand other ways that it can happen. But I want to really invite all of you not to fall for that and not to slip into that and think that that's the way it's supposed to happen. If you have the consciousness to use this teaching properly, then that's the way it works. It always shows up just like that. I don't believe that. That has not been my experience. Have I had instant healings? I remember in my very first Science of Mind class, my teacher's name was Reverend Barbara. And she gave everyone in that class, and there were over 100 of us in that class down in Miami, she said, okay, in the next week, all of you are going to treat for unexpected income, and you're going to have that and bring that to class next week and tell us about it. Oh, I don't know about that. I was still on this idea that I really wasn't up to it at that level. But sure enough, it showed up in a week. And it isn't that you treat to have it in a week. You just know in your head that that's the plan. And it showed up. I had just come back from living in Australia. And how the IRS found my address and sent me a refund that week, I don't know. But it happened. So I don't question the ability. But too often I hear people saying, well, I treated, or I went to a practitioner, and it didn't happen. Yeah, it didn't happen? Does that mean it's not going to happen? People get stuck there. They think that if it isn't like that it's not real. And that's just not true. I remember once somebody asked me to treat that they be in a loving, nurturing relationship because their last one sucked. I could do that. So we treated, and I treated knowing that they were in a relationship that was respectful, and the love was so clearly present, and that everything about that was just unfolding beautifully. And the next week they came back, and I said, well, and they said, it didn't work. I go, what do you mean it didn't work? What happened was my ex called me. We got into another big argument. I said, that was the answer to treatment. What? Yes, because the only way you're going to get to the place you want to get with someone else is to not have that anchor of that relationship being drugged by you through life, comparing everything to that relationship. And that relationship and how it's so messed up the way you think it is as much you're doing as theirs. Ah, really? That was the answer to treatment. Clean up your relationship. They couldn't see it. They didn't understand. So they had to hang on until they could possibly be ready to do that, to get the relationship that they wanted. They were in charge, but they had to do it on their timetable. And most times when we're on those timetables, we don't even know it. We don't know there's a timetable involved. We just know what we want. We want it now. But that's not what happens. That's not what it's about. Holmes says that we treat until the condition that we desire is fully present. And that doesn't mean we treat again. It means we continue that knowing. We continue to allow it to unfold, for that idea of it to grow consciously within us so that we can see it in our mind's eye. We can hear it. We can smell it and touch it and taste it. Yet we can't do that in the physical realm. We can only do that in the mental realm. But that's where our work is, to do it in the mental realm. And when it's totally and completely contrived in our minds, then it shows up. And the law cannot resist giving it to us. But a lot of times there are things that get in our way, things that keep us from having that outcome that we so desire. And it's usually our doing. No, it's always our doing. One way or another, the choices that we have made have created the circumstances and the situations that hold us and keep us from breaking forth into that new thing, into that wonderful idea, that wonderful experience of the divine that we say we seek. The only one that's in our way is us. But don't make yourself wrong. Don't make yourself bad. Certainly don't say that there's something incomplete about you. There's not. In every way, you're whole and complete and perfect as the divine being that you are. You just haven't gotten to the place in your understanding that allows that thing to manifest. It's not a problem. If you were, it would have happened. So the work, and all the work here, is to understand our divinity, to understand the presence of the divine that we are. And the deeper we have that understanding, the more we are able to open up and receive the good that is ours. But that takes some work. It takes some discipline. This movement, this teaching is one of discipline, of disciplining our thinking, getting rid of those thoughts that don't serve us, those thoughts that get in our way. That's our work. So we have to have a talk with ourselves. Spiritual mind treatment truly is a talk with ourselves. But it's not the only way you can do it. You can just have a frank conversation and say, self, this isn't working. We got to do something different. We got to see this some different way. We got to open up to something that's not clear to us yet, but we can make it clear. We can do this and allow ourselves to move into a different state of understanding, which then allows for a different state of manifestation. It's us. It's always us. We're so powerful. We're so incredibly capable of creating in our lives, more so than most people would ever imagine. We're so powerful. And when we say we have problems, we have the power to create the problems, the things that get in our way. We have the ability to hold on to fears and confusion and other things that are keeping us away from the thing that we want. It's not like somebody made that happen to us. It's never somebody else. We often can say that it's somebody else. We can blame somebody else. We can say, if it wasn't for this, this would have worked out. But that's not really what's going on. There's this gentle movement of the divine into the thing that we want. Some of us get it, and some of us don't, at least not in this lifetime. I'm certain they do in whatever lifetime is right for it. And the idea, can you feel that? I can feel it in me. I don't want to wait for another lifetime. I don't, in one lifetime? What about 1,000 lifetimes? No, thank you. Because there's still that part of me that wants it all and wants it now. And that's the part of me that's getting in my way. So I want to share with you this morning a little story. Christmas time, 2019. We had a practitioner meeting, and Barbara said she wasn't up to it and that she was going to go home. So I led the practitioner meeting, and when I came home and walked into the bedroom, Barbara's right arm was clutched like this. I didn't know what to do. So we went down and got in the car, and it eased up. It went away. But we went down and we didn't go to the hospital. We went to Margaret's house, my sister-in-law. She's a nurse. And we went in and I told her what had happened. And she said, go to the hospital. So we did. We went to the hospital. And I walked in and said to the woman at the desk at Mission Hospital, my wife's showing signs of a stroke. Boom, get out of their way. They took her and took immediate care of her and got her in, started testing her on all these things. And a doctor came to us in the emergency room and said, your wife's carotid artery is 100% blocked. Now, at that point, the question started, well, how did we not know this? Why had we not done anything about this before? So they admitted her into the hospital, and for the next week, she sat there. They had her all hooked up to all these wires, and they had a monitor in the room. And it was showing how her brain waves were working throughout her body. And her son and daughter and grandchildren would come into the room, and she'd go, "Hey, watch the monitor, see what I can do." Oh, and she would make it do different things. It was quite fascinating, but it wasn't correcting the problem. So this wonderful a neurosurgeon, a neurologist, let's call him, that was her doctor while she was in the hospital, a brilliant man who at one time had been the senior resident of the Mission Hospital system. So he was quite a player in the whole design of things, and quite brilliant. Said, "We're going to transfer Barbara to the hospital, a Baptist hospital at Wake Forest." And he started explaining to me what they would probably do and what they probably wouldn't do. There were ways to go around, bypass the artery that was blocked, and do all these different things. And he said, so they're going to want to do something before she actually has a stroke. So she got an ambulance. They put her in an ambulance, and we went to Wake Forest, and she was in the intensive care unit. And within a day, she had a stroke. And the night of that day, her surgical team got together and decided they were going to try to clear that artery in the one way that the doctor in Asheville said they would not, by putting a rod up in there and trying to jam it open. Telling me that, or telling both of us that the problem with that is that those particles that are released have nowhere to go but into her brain, and that it could kill her. But they wanted to try, and I wasn't going to tell them no, and neither was Barbara. But we looked at each other as though this might be the last time we see each other, at least in this life. That surgery was at night. And I sat there in her ICU room, and I called every ministerial colleague I had a phone number for. I even called one that was so mad at me, we had not spoken in 4 years. I won an election that she lost. And she took that really hard and said it was me. Well, I called her anyway. And she gave me the best advice. She said, "It is not for you to treat for Barbara right now. It's for me. So get out of my way." And she was right. I was so afraid. And all I wanted was for Barbara to live, because I didn't know how to live without her. So the treatments of that particular minister and dozens of others that night, I believe, had everything to do with the fact that Barbara survived that surgery. The doctor came back and told me that it had been unsuccessful, that they had not cleared her carotid artery. And my immediate thought was, no, it was successful. She's still here. Later, I had some guilt thinking that I had gotten in her way, that maybe she would want to go. She assured me that that wasn't so, that she was grateful. She had a therapist a few weeks later that asked her why she stayed. And she looked at me and said, "For him." So apparently we had some agreement that I still needed her to be here. Of course, she came home. She went through lots of therapy, lots of different things, and made improvements because she could not move. She could not walk at all. Getting in and out of bed required assistance. She did not have the use of the right side of her body, and she did not speak well at all. And that's where we were. But she, with great diligence, did her exercises, did what her physical and other therapists asked her to do, including Kate Wagner, who was with her incredible amounts of times. And she would do her exercises. She would do what was hers to do. And we hit a point where really we hit a plateau. She wasn't getting any better. In fact, to me, it was getting a little harder. And by then she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. So they put her on all kinds of medications to deal with that. And what I later learned what was going on is that some of these medications were creating inflammation in her body. One of them, the number one listed side effect was inflammation of the lungs, but it was inflaming her brain. And then at some point, she found a website and was watching these videos of people who had had strokes, and it was called the Institute for Neurological Recovery. And she asked me to watch them with her, so I sat down and was amazed that people that couldn't speak or couldn't walk or couldn't use their limbs suddenly were able to do that. Sometimes suddenly, sometimes it was weeks or months or years before they had the full effect of this procedure, which amounted to an inflammatory drug being injected into the brain through the spinal column. So I said, okay, let's call him, see what we can do. And I did, and we called them, and we talked about it, and we answered all their questions and filled out all their forms and gave them a ton of money. And now we're in the room with the doctor. And the doctor's inquiring about things. And I tell him, we had already had a telephone interview that lasted, 15, 20 minutes. And then after that, Barbara had an event, which we think was a TIA, which is a mini stroke, which caused her to fall and not injure herself in the fall, but not to be able to get up. And when I couldn't get her up, I called an ambulance, and they came and got her and kept her in the hospital and tested her for 4 days and then sent her home. When I told this doctor in Florida about this, he said, I can't do this procedure. He said, anything like that, I can't do a procedure for I think it was 3 or 4 months. And I also told him about more about the drugs that he was on. He said, no, she can't have this. And one of his assistants comes in and hands me a check for $10,000, which was money I gave them. They wouldn't do it. They sent us away. And that was the week that we came back here and announced our retirement. I was so dejected. I felt like all was lost. I was not practicing the principles. But we announced it, and we've moved forward with that, and I'm not sure that's such a bad thing, but that's where we were at that point. But I want to say that our practitioners never gave up, never once gave up. They continued to know the truth of Barbara, that there was improvement for her, that she could have a better life, even when I couldn't. And I'm so grateful to these beloved people that I call my students, but truly, they're my teachers. And they kept their work up. And I didn't know what else was going to happen. But we continued doing what we're doing. And an opportunity, a year after Barbara was diagnosed with breast cancer, we actually had I had the gumption to push to have the surgeon that said if we could get the size of that tumor down by half, that she would remove it. And I said, well, that's what she said. And we're hearing, well, it's metastatic breast cancer, and that doesn't mean that the cancer is going to be gone. And my thought was, I don't care. I want that tumor out of her body. So we went through surgery. And in January, Barbara had a lumpectomy, had that tumor, which was about the third of the size that it had been, removed from her body, without any promise that was going to make any difference. But it did make a difference. She had a PET scan after that. They found some other cancer in her body. And the doctor said immediately, we're going to change her medications. Now, the new medications don't have any side effects of inflammation, which was the thing that was stopping us from getting that down in Florida. So that's over. I called them down in Florida. I explained that to them. The doctor says, I need a letter from your oncologist. And apparently our incredible, wonderful, young oncologist sent a glowing letter, a beautiful letter. The doctor in Florida said it was quite impressive, approving of Barbara having this procedure. So on Thursday, we went down to Florida. we went down and we flew down and got a hotel room, and I made sure it was a beachfront hotel room so Barbara could see the ocean. And on Friday at noon, we showed up at the Institute for Neurological Recovery. And they put us through the process, but it was much easier because they had all our paperwork from the first time. So, and they do all this procedure stuff where they test her cognitive state. And they did a little of that. And then they moved us into the room to meet with the doctor, and we did. And he was glad to see us, and we were well received there. And after we went through all the preliminary conversation, he came in with a syringe. She's sitting in a seat. He said, now I want you to lean forward and tuck your chin in. And his assistant moved Barbara's hair, and in the back of her neck, he injected this anti-inflammatory drug. And she sat back up, and we waited. Actually, they inverted her. The chair she was in, so they wrapped her legs and her waist, and then they inverted her so that fluid, that medicine would go into her brain. And we waited. And then they sat her back up and asked her what she was feeling. And she said, I can taste the medicine. And the doctor said, that's a good sign. That means we've got it in the right place. And then he said, what are you feeling? And she said, clear. And she said, amazing. And after a little while, they took the straps off right away, but after a little while, they asked her to stand up. They said, if you're dizzy, sit back down, but stand up. Which she did, and she took her cane, and he said, just walk around this room. It was the size of a master bedroom, and there was lots of walking space. She started off and did 3 laps and was moving faster than I've ever seen her move since her stroke. And she sat back down. We talked a little more, and they released us, and off we went. I kept checking with her. How you feeling? She said, I'm feeling good. But that was just the immediacy of it, that we got that. And I watched all those videos, and I wanted to see it all. And I wanted to see it now. All this improvement, let's do it now. So many of those videos we watched, immediate improvement. Okay. Well, she did walk to the car, which she took her wheelchair in, and I brought the wheelchair out without her in it. So there was definitely an improvement there. We went and ate. We got back to the room. She was tired, so she went to bed. The next morning, we got up, we got on a plane, we came home. After the flight, excuse me, we were a bit tired, so we came home, and it seemed like she was sluggish, more than usual. And that I'm sure was the fatigue of the trip. And I asked her how she was doing, and she said, all right. And I said, I got in a space that really wasn't that pretty. I said, we've gone through all of this. Are you going backwards? What do you want? What do you want to have happen here? And remember for a moment, you're the great and glorified Barbara Waterhouse. What do you want? She said, I want this to work. Okay. We cried. We hugged. She went to sleep. I did soon after. And so when she got up after a while, she didn't sleep that long, but she got up and we talked some more. And she got up and moved around. Now, one thing they gave us was a form to fill out for any changes that we saw every day for the first week. And this is at 7:30 last night. This is the list that I wrote. She's walking faster. The swelling in her right foot is gone. There was a time when she had to wear 2 different size shoes because her foot was so swollen. Her right foot is relaxed. Her toes were clenched up. They're totally relaxed now. we had our first conversation with her speaking in complete sentences in 3 years. Her sleep apnea seems to be gone. And she has increased mental focus. That was the first full day. What I didn't understand is we had to wait for this. It wasn't time for this. If we had done it when we went the first time, it wouldn't have worked. The drugs that she was on would have reversed it, and we would have thought that it didn't work. We had to wait. We had to wait to get what we wanted all along. I have to tell you, it was worth the wait. I wish she was here this morning to show you. She couldn't be, just because I fed her pizza. Normally on Sunday mornings you have a piece of toast or a little yogurt or some cottage cheese, but no. Hey, let's have pizza. Bad idea. Anyway, what I know is that she'll be here next week, and you will be amazed. Yeah. So if you want to be a student of the science of mind, if you want to learn to use your ability to create to its fullest advantage, don't set boundaries on it of requiring short periods of time. Be open to what needs to happen for that to be so. See, this thing about doing spiritual mind treatment and allowing something to manifest in your life, it isn't magic. Holmes said, this is not magic, this is science. And what he means by that is that when the condition that you're calling forth into your life is fully manifest, and you look back at your life as to what happened to make that happen, it's all going to be normal things. It's going to be someone said something, someone did something, something opened up, I heard about this. It'll be like normal life. It's not magic. It's using this to allow the regularity of life to reveal the thing that you desire. It isn't magic. But what it does, what treatment does, is it opens our mind to accept that as our reality, that outcome. That's the work. So when you treat, you never say when. You never say how. You only say what. And when you know what you want and you're clear about it and you can see it in your mind's eye, when you can envision it fully formed in your mind, then you can have it at just the right time and not a moment before. So I wanted you to know this. This is the lesson that we've been getting for the last 3 years. Barbara's doing better. It's good stuff. And we're learning. We're still learning. And I'm so grateful to share this with you. I love you very much. Thank you.